Hi, everybody. Welcome to our fourth and final Discovery Hour of the academic year. Thank you for joining us. It is great to see so many folks with us today. Whether you've got your lunch with you, if you're on the East Coast, or maybe you have got a beverage in another time zone, we are excited that you're here and hope you will enjoy the next hour with us. I'm Anna Chen, the Associate University Librarian for Special Collections and Director of Wilson Library, and we are excited to bring you this special series of Discovery Hours where you get a close-up look at the university library and meet the librarians and archivists behind each of the stories that we share. We would also like to thank our friends of the library who make events like this possible. If you are interested in learning more about becoming a friend of the library, you can visit our website, which is library.unc.edu/give. So today you will be hearing about the work of the North Carolina Digital Heritage Center, which we also call the NCDHC. So the NCDHC is a statewide digital publishing project that's based here at the Wilson Special Collections Library. And the NCDHC partners with libraries, archives, schools, museums, other similar organizations to digitize materials from their collections and make them freely available online. And since the program first began in 2010, the NCDHC has worked with partners in each of the 100 counties in the state, over 350 partners in all. And if you go to the NCDHC's website, which is digitalnc.org, you can see the ways in which it gives everyone a way to engage with the history and culture of North Carolina, whether it's for school, research, or your own curiosity. And none of this would be possible without the partnership of the State Library of North Carolina, which has supported the NCDHC with funds from the Institute of Museum and Library Services as part of the Library Services and Technology Act, which is the only federal program that provides funds exclusively for libraries across the United States. Our partnership with the state library has had incredible scope and impact on our state. And so I am pleased now to introduce Michelle Underhill, State Librarian of North Carolina, who will share more with us about the Digital Heritage Center from her perspective.
Thank you, Anna. And thank you all for joining us today. It's a real honor to be a part of this Discovery Hour and to help spotlight the work of the North Carolina Digital Heritage Center. The Digital Heritage Center is such a treasure for our state, as well as for researchers around the world, because it's a program of those partnerships and collaborations across libraries, museums, archives, schools, and other cultural heritage organizations. The materials from these organizations that are now available online through the Digital Heritage Center describe people, places, and events throughout history. And many of these digitized items are finding expanded audiences and different uses or purposes since they're now available online. And you don't have to drive across all 100 of our North Carolina counties or visit those over 350 institutions to access the information in these digitized resources thanks to the Digital Heritage Center's website. The Digital Heritage Center staff have also curated resources that help people explore the rich resources that are available to them. And these include collected primary source sets about topics such as food. Who doesn't like food? It's lunchtime, right? Folk arts, civil rights, and these sets include content from multiple contributing partners as well. There are also K-12 classroom resources, so teachers can have their students engage with documentary history. And as Anna had said, the Digital Heritage Center is supported in part through a Library Services and Technology Act grant administered by the State Library of North Carolina, and these funds are made possible through the Federal Institute of Museum and Library Services under the provisions of the Library Services and Technology Act. We're a proud partner and supporter of the Digital Heritage Center. Their work really highlights and amplifies the incredible work being done by cultural heritage institutions throughout the state. And it's just a perfect example of the amazing work that we can all do by working together and building on both our individual and collective strengths. So I'm thrilled to be here today and look forward to having even more information shared about the Digital Heritage Center. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It is really meaningful to hear directly from you how the Digital Heritage Center has impacted the state. Now we will turn to the staff and student employees at the Digital Heritage Center. We have asked them to share with us about the work and fun that they have. So a few logistics before the presentation starts. We love questions and comments. So please submit questions or comments anytime during the presentation. You can type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And we will listen to each of the presentations before moving to Q&A at the end of the event. So now, first up is Kristen Merriman. Kristen is the interim head and digital projects and outreach manager at the NCDHC. So Kristen, I will turn things over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna, and thank you, Michelle, for that excellent introduction to our work, which we love doing. I will go ahead and pull up my slideshow so everyone can see a little bit more about us. Okay. All right, and that should now be going for everyone. Okay, does that look good? Thumbs up. Okay, great. Okay. I am Krista Merriman. I am currently the interim head of the North Carolina Digital Heritage Center. Our previous head, Lisa Gregory, served in that role for many years, and she has now moved on to be the North Carolina Collection Curator here at Wilson Library. So she's still around, which is great for us. And I think that's one of the strengths of the Digital Heritage Center is a lot of our staff, we like to stick around because we love the work. This is just going to be a peek behind the scenes of what our work looks like, and then some highlights from what we've digitized over the years. So, as Michelle said, we began in 2010, so we've been around now for 16 years, which is crazy. I personally have been with the center since 2016, so this is my 10th year working with the center. We are located at Wilson Library Special Collections at UNC Chapel Hill, so right in the middle of campus. And we are a partnership between the State Library of North Carolina and UNC Chapel Hill. And as Michelle spoke to, we are a centralized statewide service. And we kind of were conceived of as part of an outcrop of the NC Echo project, which took place in the early 2000s, where they surveyed what cultural heritage institutions existed across North Carolina and what their needs were. And a huge need at that time was digitization. And it was decided rather than kind of give everyone a scanner that they maybe would have time to do stuff with. Why not centralize that money, centralize that expertise, and free up the staff at these institutions to focus on their communities and collecting and doing the work they know and telling the stories they know, and let us take on that work of digitization and providing access to these materials. So that is why we exist. And our funding is primarily via LSTA funds, the Library Science Services and Technology Act money that goes to the IMLS, that goes to the state library, and then comes to us. So who are we? Right now we have 4 full-time staff members. And as I said, we're down 1 person right now, but we're still going strong. Myself, our programmer, Stephanie Williams, who does all the magic behind our website, digitalnc.org. Ashley Brewer, who oversees our in-house digitization. And then John Cooper, who recently joined our staff, is a full-time digitization technician. So we always have someone scanning stuff. And then we have right now 5 part-time students that are working for us. 2 of them you're going to hear from today. Summer Stevens, who is a Carolina Academic Library Associate here at Wilson. And then we have 4 other full-time, half-time. Graduate assistants, Kate Berry, Carly Jensen, Mary Margaret Leah, and Lauren Vargo. And I always like to say who's working for us because they're really the ones that make all this work happen, that make everything get online. So I just want to call attention to that hidden work of digitization. Okay. Oops, sorry. So who do we work with? As Michelle mentioned, we have at least one partner in every county across North Carolina. We nicely have a very neat and even 100 counties across the state. And so we have at least one partner in each, but we have many more partners in many of the counties. Right now, we're up to 367 partner institutions across the state of North Carolina, and this map kind of gives you an idea of where they are. So we have pretty good coverage. We do have partners in Manteo and Murphy, so we've hit the full run. Who are our partners? So our partners are kind of have a wide cross section of who collects cultural heritage across North Carolina. So we have 135 partners who identify themselves as libraries or an archive. That can be public libraries. It could be a private library or archives. Kind of all over the map, big public libraries like Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library or Forsyth County Public Library, and really small libraries like the Tufts Archives down in the Sandhills, other small public libraries across the state. Then we have other types of cultural heritage organizations that include alumni associations. A particular strong group that we have of alumni associations are formerly Black schools that operated during segregation, and their alumni groups and their materials that we've been able to put online. Different community groups and clubs. We have lots of women's clubs that we work with across the state. Historic sites, historical societies, and museums. And then we work with a lot of schools. Almost 100 schools are included among our partners now. And those include big public colleges and universities. We've worked with all 16 UNC system schools in different capacities. They include private colleges and universities as big as Duke. And then we've worked with HBCUs across the state, some secondary schools, private secondary schools. And one of my favorite partner groups are our community colleges here in North Carolina, which is a growing group of users or partners for us. So while most people know us as the folks that scan things, and they maybe know us for the website, so our access layer that we do, we also do a lot of promotion. For our What's Online, we try to highlight and provide more visibility for our partners' materials to bring attention to what they have in their collections. And so we do that via social media. We have a blog, presentations like this. And then we also do a fair amount of consulting. Since we've been around so long and we do a lot of digitization of a lot of different types of stuff, we kind of have built up a real expertise about this work. And we also have a really good understanding of our partners' needs. Different ones of us who have worked in the center have backgrounds working in public libraries or museums or smaller institutions, and so have a really good handle about the budget constraints, the technology constraints, the staff hour constraints that they have. And so can try to work with them to figure out what they're looking for and how best to get what they need. And it might be linking them with someone else in the state who's working on a similar thing. We really see ourselves as not just doing this work in-house, but really a way to connect different cultural heritage institutions to each other. So if someone says, I'm looking at this new type of technology, I can say, oh, so is that this partner in Charlotte, let me connect you to, and you can talk about how how it might work for them or if it might not work for you. And so that is, I think, a really important part of the work we do as well. That's kind of hidden when you look at our website. As I said, our website, this is, we call it our front porch. This is how anyone interacts with us. This is everything we scan. A prerequisite of working with us is if we scan your stuff, it has to go online on digitalenc.org where it is freely accessible to everyone. So it is publicly available. Everything's publicly available. We either have permission for copyrighted materials, and they can go up online, or we've cleared copyright that it's fine to go online. And so this is where you search the collections, our newspapers, and as Michelle alluded to, we also have some primary source sets and educator resources as well on our site that we've been building. And just to kind of give you a concept of what numbers look like for us, in 2025, we had a really busy year. I mean, you can see our GIF. We have a lot of fun in the office. So we celebrated 15 years last year, and we worked with 85 partners across the state. 71 were repeat partners, ones we've worked with, and 14 were brand new partners. And a lot of the repeat partners, we did multiple batches for them in a year. And so we keep very, very busy. We scanned over 62,000 images in-house, and that does not include items that were scanned by our vendor partners. So we added over 100,000 individual scans to our website last year. And we had 926,000 visitors to digitalnc.org. So we have nearly 1 million visitors every year onto our website. And so we're really proud of that. So how do we do the work? This is a glamour shot of our stacks area. So we try to make working with us very simple. We understand that our partners are working with limited resources often. So we try to be really flexible about how they get materials to us. We can do it via the mail, drop it off with us in Chapel Hill. And we also are always really cognizant of where our partners are and what needs they might have. So if any of us are out around the state, we often will set up a time to pick things up if they have something that needs picked up or something dropped off. My children personally have seen many a public library across the state of North Carolina as a result of that. But this is what it looks like. So our partner gets in touch with us. If they're a new partner, they knew the routine. They just shoot me an email. If it's a new partner, usually they find out about us these days through word of mouth. Another partner has mentioned us. They've found our website. They've talked to someone maybe at the state archives or state library, and they've recommended for them to come talk to us because we could help them out. But we talk to them about a batch, which is usually maybe a box of materials, 5 scrapbooks, 1,000 pages of newspapers, 200 photographs. It just kind of depends. That's one of the things we need to talk to them about is, what do you have, and let's talk about what we'll start with. We ask them to get the batch put together in a box or some way of getting it to us. And then it's dropped off with us at UNC, it's mailed, or like I said, we might go pick it up. And then we do all the scanning, the description for the materials, so you can find it online, we call metadata. And then we upload it onto our website, digitalnc.org, and that's all done by our staff that I listed earlier. And then we send them a link to where that material is on our website so they can look at it and make sure it looks okay. And we fix any mistakes, misspellings, a wrong date, something doesn't look right. And then once we get the okay for them, we publicize that the batch is online, usually through our blog. And then we set up a time for them to come back and get their materials, or we mail it back. Or if we're going to be traveling near them, we'll bring it back to them. That we do not collect. So the materials come to us and then we send them back home. That's a really important part of us. We do not claim any ownership over these materials. We are just making them accessible. They belong to our partners. So digitization behind the scenes. As I said earlier, one of the reasons we exist was the idea that you could kind of centralize those funds to buy really nice scanners and cameras to operate these materials. And so we have a whole set of this. I'm not going to read them all out, but this just gives you an idea. We have several overhead camera setups using the phase 1 cameras. We have some other fancy cameras that we have set up on you'll see some pictures of how these are set up to do really large scale materials. And then we have, of course, other scanners that you might be more familiar with, Zoitrel overhead cameras, flatbed, Epsons, that all of these get used, and we determine what camera or scanner we're going to use based on what materials you bring to us. And these are just some photos that show those cameras in action and our staff in action behind the scenes. So you can see we can do really big maps. We do 3D items. We do lots and lots of newspapers, which is what both of these images are of, bound newspapers. And this is both showing our phase 1 cameras, which are our real workhorses, and our students' favorite to work with. And so, I'm talking about all this stuff, but am I actually the one doing the scanning? These days, unfortunately, I am not. But we have an amazing staff, and so I'm going to turn it over to 2 of our student workers, Carly Jensen, who's a graduate assistant, and Summer Stevens, who's a graduate assistant, but as a CALA. And both are class of 2026 at UNC's School of Information and Library Science, so they're going to be graduating soon. And I will let them take it away.
Thanks, Kristen. As she mentioned, my name is Carly Jensen, and I'm a second-year Master's in Library Science student in the Archives and Records Management track. I've been working at NCDHC for about a year and a half, and one of my favorite aspects about this role is that I not only get to work with these incredible collections, but some of the most hardworking and driven people that I know. I wanted to start off my section by showing you all a photo of one of my new favorite collections from the Girl Scouts Peaks to Piedmont Council. One of my favorite aspects of working here is that I love that we can see ourselves in these materials from the past. I know moving here from out of state was a struggle personally, but working with these materials from across North Carolina has helped me understand more about this wonderful state and its people, allowing me to find a true sense of place. This image from the Girl Scouts stuck out to me because I was a Girl Scout growing up, and I also had the opportunity to study abroad in Denmark. So I really appreciated seeing aspects of myself in the materials that I work with. I think so much of our work is really about connecting people through the past through our digitization work, and I'm really proud of that. As I mentioned earlier, I've been working here for about a year and a half, and I really appreciate all the opportunities for growth that I've been given. I recently had the opportunity to work with Kristen to upload materials from Elon University and the Power in Place Collaborative's Oral History Project. These materials are an incredible collection of interviews with folks from across Alamance County, largely about the civil rights movement. As part of this work, I've been collaborating with Kristen and taking meetings with the folks at Elon and Power in Place, giving me more of a forward-facing role with partners, which has been really exciting. And finally, I wanted to share a fun picture from a newspaper batch I worked on. This is an image from the News of Orange County from 1914. And as you can see, she was a little bit of a problem child. She's kind of disintegrating. And I basically had to piece all the pieces back together like a puzzle. Ultimately, we want to ensure that we're creating high quality, accessible scans for our users. And it's always really nice when we get to have a little bit of fun putting them back together. And now I'll pass it off to Summer to hear more on their thoughts on our work.
Thank you, Carly. As Carly previously mentioned, the NCDHC has created a lot of opportunities for its graduate student employees to gain specialized experience, take part in projects, and really set our own learning goals while we work here, which is awesome. And one of my favorite projects in particular is actually an annual project that involves the whole team. This project is a month-long pause, usually during the month of December, where we all participate in auditing and cleaning up components of the metadata that's attached to our digital NC collections. Well, we use controlled vocabularies that are correlated to specific mark fields with how much metadata we create and how much training of new staff we do. Our records are bound to pick up some mistakes eventually. I'm guilty of contributing to that for sure. But for this project, we selected different tasks from our ongoing metadata to-do list that builds kind of throughout the year. And we fix the records to correct things like formatting, terms, and punctuation. So this is an example on the screen of our internal list of terms that we use for our subject images category, which we use to describe the visual content of images. So pages like this are commonly used by staff as they create metadata. It's like a reference page. And while our internal reference lists are like immensely helpful for consistency and efficiency, they're only effective if this metadata is correct in the first place, which makes the annual cleanup a really important tool to make sure we're perpetuating consistent and accurate metadata in the following year. And so this kind of work and project is really fulfilling for me because I'm thinking about all of the graduate students that are going to be starting next year and like they will be working with like a fresh reference list, you know. So it's very fulfilling. And I think also for this year, I worked on a few different tasks, which included weeding out terms that should be under one category subject names, think proper nouns, from the category subject topics, and fixing issues with our titling conventions to promote kind of consistency across our titles. And instead of saying portraits of, just say the person, things like that. And, you know, as someone who's currently actively applying for jobs that involve metadata and record creation, this type of work has been one of the most important experiences in terms of my professional confidence and aptitude in the field. As iterative as working routinely with metadata is, it's really like the best practice with metadata is to quality check, audit, and correct the metadata itself. And then one more thing. Carly also kind of talked about connecting with partners, but another great thing about working with the NCDHC has been having the chance to meet and work directly with our partners around the state. Our partners are often comprised of people like public librarians, volunteers, and community memory workers whose dedication to preserve the unique histories really serves as a basis for our work and empowers us. So in my first year, I got to accompany the team down to Queen's University of Charlotte, where we scanned film and prints from the Queen's University of Charlotte's archive. This was an opportunity for me to meet our partner at Queen's University of Charlotte in person, who I've since then met again, and also watch how NCDHC staff works with our partners. And Kristen talked about this very early in the presentation, but while the bulk of what we do is digitize, describe, and publish collections from our partners, another really important aspect of our work is consulting with partners about their collections. And especially for this visit, it was really awesome to see Kristen do this kind of work in real time, and advise our partner and try to connect our partner to other resources too. And so that's the picture on the left of us scanning. And then the other picture is taken in Lexington, where we visit our partners at the Davidson County Historical Museum, who we're currently working with to digitize the studio collection of Davidson County photographer H. Lee Waters. On this visit to exchange boxes of negatives and prints, our partners at the Davidson County Historical Museum gave us tours of their collections. They showed us what they had previously used digitized prints from H. Lee Waters and exhibits for. They also gave us background on kind of the custodial history, how they came into acquiring this collection, and then they kind of shared their hopes and for the project and the future of this collection. And so it's honestly been really awesome to just work with partners and meet them. So yeah, it's been a great opportunity.
Thanks so much to Summer and Carly for sharing their experiences. We take it really seriously, our role in helping train the future information professionals of tomorrow that come through our doors. We always have a pretty good staff of graduate assistants, pretty large staff of graduate assistants that we employ every year. And so that's one of the really fun parts of working in the center is working with them and seeing how they work together. And for many of them who aren't from North Carolina, giving them a little more information about North Carolina than just Chapel Hill, and getting them out and around the state. I've been known to be driving across Eastern North Carolina and pointing out, like, that's a sweet potato. That's what tobacco looks like. Those are soybeans. So they can confirm that. Okay. So now I just want to show off some of the materials on our site if you've never been on it. It was very hard to narrow this down, so this is just a smattering. We have at this moment over 6,920,000 items on Digital NC. And for our newspapers, we have almost 5 million individual pages of newspaper. So it's a ton of content. So this is just a taste. So, and I kind of broke this up by types of materials we see through our doors. So this is something that partners love to bring to us, scrapbooks. And we have a love-hate relationship with scrapbooks in the Digital Heritage Center because they are amazing documents, and they also are very often put together by women's groups And so they really portray a aspect of history and documentation by maybe women who otherwise you wouldn't find in the archives. Um, but they also tend to be falling apart and full of weird things and weird glue. And so we love our scrapbooks though. And these are some fun ones. This particular one is from Hot Springs, North Carolina, and it was an entry into the Finer Carolina scrapbook competition that was run by Carolina Power and Light Company, which now I guess is Duke Energy, but at the time was, the leading company in electrification around North Carolina. And they had a competition in the 50s where you could enter a scrapbook about how your community was doing improvements. And usually you want to cite how electrification was helping with those improvements, but any community improvements. And then you'd make a scrapbook and submit it. And then I think the winning scrapbook, that community then got some money from the company towards more community improvements, parks, whatever. So this is one of the entries. And then this one from 1951 from the Sanford Women's Club was the first year they did this competition, and they won that year. So we have a winner of the Finer Carolina scrapbook competition here, and this was really fun. The little guy with the light bulb, he was apparently their mascot. And so he showed up on every page of the scrapbooks. And so I had no idea this program ever existed. I'd never heard of it before, and we have gotten so many scrapbooks from this program from all over the state, so it's really fun. And my dad used to work for CP&L, so I was like, "Oh, Dad, did you know this existed?" He had no idea. I think it stopped after the end of the 50s, so it was like a decade-long program, but these are really fun. And that was just a taste of scrapbooks. We have thousands on our site. We also you saw in the images of our scanners and cameras, we can do really big format materials. And so a lot of partners will bring us architectural drawings and maps, which are really big and you can't do on a regular scanner. And so William B. Umstead State Park brought us almost 400 maps and architectural drawings that they found in an office in the park for us to scan. And they're really cool because a lot of them dated back to the early days of the park when it was part of the being kind of put together by the CCC. And so it's a lot of 1930s and 1940s era drawings, which are some of my favorites. And they also get into when the park was segregated, the different areas of the park that existed and that sort of thing, which is kind of maintained today when you can't drive all the way through the park still to this day because of this history. And we just these are pretty. Here's some more maps. These are both from Western Carolina University, which has a huge collection of maps from our mountains. And these are both related, I believe. One's for the Blue Ridge Parkway and one is for the Appalachian Trail. And then we've also done lots of Sanborn maps, which of course were maps that document or books that kind of were used by the Sanborn Insurance Company, but they're now really great resources for how cities and towns across North Carolina evolved over time. People use them a lot for historical preservation research. And they're just really amazing documents. This one is from 1907, so a really early one that we did for Forsyth County Public Library. We also do some 3D materials, so physical objects, and not necessarily just for museums. This one is part of a collection from the Scott family papers that Alamance Community College holds. And it's from Melville Dairy, which used to operate. And we just really love this little cute milkman. We also have done outfits. This is a very kind of over the top one that we did from 1890 from the Museum and Archives of Rockingham County. But we've also done waitress uniforms for our favorite restaurant that was in Tarboro. We've done basketball uniforms for different partners. This one is from the Hendersonville High Alumni Association, and it's got their newspaper staff's t-shirt and also this really great button-up that they had. We also did a bunch of uniforms, cheerleading and basketball uniforms for them. We have lots of pictures. So I just picked two photo collections to focus on and just kind of threw them out. This one is from Davie County Public Library, which has a huge collection on our site that called Digital Davie, and these are all different photographs from their collections. And then this is from the Asheville YWCA photograph collection, which is held by the University of North Carolina at Asheville. That's a really awesome photo collection. And you can kind of see we do photos that date, really old, 1800s, all the way up to present day. I really love the ones from like the 70s and the 80s. Really fun photograph collections. We also do thousands of yearbooks. And that's how a lot of folks find our site, is because we have a lot of yearbooks from all over North Carolina. We have over 16,000 yearbooks on our website from almost every college and university in the state, and then from a growing number of high schools as well. And so this is just a selection. If you are ever at Wilson Library and want to see more, we have an exhibit on the first floor of Wilson that highlights kind of fashion photographs from the yearbooks, and that's what all these photos are going to be pulled from. So this one is from 1913 at Oxford College. This is from Johnson C. Smith University, their baseball team. We've got App State's football team. These are really fun. We love this voguing picture from the 1990 St. Augustine's College Falcon. And then we also really love the hiking and outing club from App State in the 70s, particularly the guy fully in his sleeping bag. These are just, they're so fun to just see how students and how student expression really changed over time here in North Carolina. This one's amazing from the 1970 A&T from NCDHC and Phi Group 5, one of their fraternities. And then this is from Campbell University, their Pine Bar in 1987, and this is their homecoming court. It's very 80s. And then we do lots of other stuff, not just yearbooks, not just scrapbooks, photographs. We also do lots and lots of ledgers. And I just picked one out, but we've done thousands. And this one was really interesting because this is from a steamship log when steamships used to operate in the eastern part of North Carolina on the rivers before the railroads had really stretched out that far, and there were no like highways or anything like that. The steamships carried things around. So this is a shot from that. It came from Person County Museum of History. And then newspapers, where, as I said, we've reached almost 5 million pages, and we could probably just do newspapers all the time, and that would keep us busy. This one is probably the most important and interesting newspaper on our site. It's an issue of the Daily Record in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is a Black-owned newspaper in Wilmington. And this is the last known extant issue of the paper that was published before those offices were destroyed in the 1898 Wilmington coup. And this was brought to us by Cape Fear Museum, which was doing a project to find as many issues as possible of the paper. And then we scanned them for them. And so this is historically a very important paper on our site. We've got lots of other ones. And what makes it, because we have such a wide breadth of North Carolina papers, it can make it really interesting to pick a date in history and kind of see, okay, how did people across North Carolina experience that event? And so Pearl Harbor is a really easy one to kind of pick and identify as a date. And so these are all from the week after Pearl Harbor, the issues that came out. And so you can see how the Daily Tar Heel talked about it, how people in Beaufort were learning about it, and how people, this one is the Franklin Times, so out in Franklin County, we're also learning about it. And so that I think is such a strength of our newspaper collection, and makes it kind of fun to look through, to see how different areas we're talking about different things. And of course, we often have multiple newspapers from a town that have different viewpoints, and so you can study those viewpoints. We might have the Black-owned paper from the town and the white-owned paper. You can see how they were experiencing events differently. So it's just a really amazing, rich resource. And we have papers on our site right up to present day. And so you can see how in March 17th, actually this week in 2020, how the Martin County Enterprise and Weekly Herald was talking about COVID-19. And this November 2024 issue of the Ocracoke Observer, which we are scanning for them as it's being published now, which kind of talked about Hurricane Helene and how the Outer Banks communities were supporting the communities in the mountains. And there's many, many more newspapers. This, like I said, this is just a taste. We have small community papers. We have mill papers that were printed by the mill companies that used to operate in North Carolina. Just student newspapers. Like I said, we had the Daily Tar Heel, but we have lots of other student newspapers. So many, many more where these came from. So in short, if you want to learn more, go to our website, digitalenc.org, and have fun digging around on your own. And now I think it's time for questions. And
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, I'll stop sharing. Okay, there we go.
Okay. That was awesome. Thank you. Thank you to all of you for sharing your experiences with us today. And now we will turn to questions. So question number 1, what kind of project management tools do you use to stay organized as a team?
That's a great question. We have a couple different project management tools. The number one I think that we would say is Trello, a website called Trello, Trello. And it is trying to think of how, it's basically a card-based project management system where you can create a little card and there's lists. And so every partner batch that we get in has its own card, and then we have a checklist on it and where we check off everything that has to be done. And then the cards get assigned to different folks who are doing digitization. And then I'm also on that list. Ashley, the head of digitization, is on that list too. And so we pass them around based on who's doing what until we get to complete, and then we can have the partner come pick it back up. So that's number 1. We also use Google Drive to do a lot of our documentation, and that makes it easy to share things with partners if they need to look at metadata or share things with us and that sort of thing. So I say those are probably the 2 main project management tools we use. I don't know, Summer or Carly, am I forgetting anything? Okay.
Great. Next question. Do any partners find sending their content challenging? Are shipping costs ever an issue for partners, and how do you navigate that?
So sometimes shipping costs are not usually a problem, and we can assist with that, and we cover the shipping to send it back to folks. Typically, if it's going to be tricky, we'll work with you to come pick it up, or work out a time where maybe we're both going to be at a conference, like a statewide conference, like the Society of North Carolina Archivists or something. I often am wheeling and dealing in the parking lot because I'll have multiple partners that I see at conferences, and I'm like, I've got your stuff, or I'm picking stuff up. And we'll get like rent a van or something and make sure we have space for everything. So we do try, if it's something's going to be a hardship with cost or getting to us, we really try to work with partners to make that not a barrier.
And that's how your children also have.
Yes, and so yes, they yes, it's like, oh, we're going to the mountains, and also we're going to visit Southwestern Community College.
Cool. Okay, next question. In terms of the photographs that you digitize, do you are there any issues with having individual permission to digitize and post the photographs?
That's an interesting question. So we do make sure with photographs in particular, if there's some question about who owns those photos, who owns the copyright, or whoever donated them for like privacy reasons, that they're comfortable putting them online. And only after we clear that do we get them online. So far, we've never run into any issues with that. Often we'll have folks that really want us to get them online and they want us to get them all online. And it's like a 10,000, photograph, different individual photograph collection. We're like, well, it's going to take us a while. The photographs take a lot of time, and so they're one of the slower things we digitize, because we want to be able to give them their due diligence and give them a good description so people can find them.
That's great. There's also a comment that came in that I'll just share, which is that the little cartoon character in the Hot Springs scrapbook is named Ready Kilowatt.
That's right. We looked that up when we first found him. Ready Kilowatt.
Very
He's
cute.
adorable.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
For all of you or any of you, is there any item or kind of item that you haven't seen yet or that you haven't seen a lot of yet that you would be interested in interacting with more in the future?
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like we've seen kind of everything. We even had a champagne bottle that was used to christen a ship. So it got banged against the hull of a ship, and the broken bottle and the bag it was in was brought to us to scan. And that one I'd never seen that before, but that one was fun. So I don't know. Can y'all think of anything?
I mean, we've gotten a lot of like ledgers, the steamship ledger that Kristen was talking about. I got to digitize that, and I find that really cool. So I think there's some very like niche short-term histories. Like there's no longer steamboats on the Tar River, right? And so it's not in a lot of people's just like everyday knowledge. So I think sometimes those kind of items where you just learn something that you most people don't know is really cool.
Yeah, I want to echo Summer and Kristen. I feel like we've kind of seen it all. I think something that is really fun is that we get to do sometimes is negatives. Getting to work with those and just bring them and blow them up and bring them to life is super cool and interesting.
Cool. Yeah, it was really fun to see the huge variety of materials that you do and the 3D objects and the textiles were especially fun for me to see. Um, so I know that you said that your partners are all organizational. So I was wondering if you could say more about, like, do individuals ever approach you and kind of what resources might you know? If you do, you know of any resources for individuals that might be interested in digital preservation
Yeah.
documents?
So we are, because of the way we're funded, we do have to work with organizations that in some manner have collecting scope or are open to the public, that we can point them to a place where you can go see that actual object. So we don't work with private individuals. But we do have people call and ask, hey, I have this collection or this item. Where can you do it for me? And I have to say no. But some of our partners across the state have their own kind of digitization setups that the public are welcome to come in and use. I know Harnett County Public Library just got one, and Forsyth County Public Library has had one for a while. And I know a lot of public libraries around the state have kind of at least a scanner that you can go in and scan your own materials. And some of the universities also do. So you can reach out to us and I can try to connect you with whoever's going to be closest to you physically, if you're interested in doing your own kind of work. And we can also recommend vendors who do the work, particularly like AV, we cannot do on site. We don't have that capacity. And so sometimes our partners will pay to get it digitized by an AV vendor, and then just send the files to us and we'll put it online. But we have some vendors that work with individuals as well that we can recommend. So we always are happy to like field questions, but we wouldn't be able to do the scanning ourselves. But yes, I have a pie in the sky dream of having some setup that people could come in and do their own scanning here at Carolina, but it doesn't exist yet.
Um, Here's another question for you. Do companies with historical collections or files ever approach you?
I don't think a company has ever approached us. That's a great question. Um, I don't think we've ever had that. We have done, company files for companies that no longer exist that are obviously now held by a private or by like a library and archives. Some furniture company files that are held by High Point Museum. A lot of mill company files that are held down in Gastonia and where is it? Davidson County Library has like a lot of mill newspapers, and those are really interesting. But I don't think we've ever had a company get in contact with us. So if they did, we do work with private organizations. So I think as long as they were cool with it going online and it was North Carolina related, um, we could work with them.
Cool. Um, do you ever work with partners, libraries, museums, et cetera, to help them set up their own digitization sites?
So I'm not sure if this means website or like a physical site, like a physical location, but we've helped with both. So, we do. Some partners, yes, they want to have their own setup, have their own website that they run, and they're doing their own digitization. Or we've scanned stuff for them and they are going to put it on their site. And we're fine with that. We think more places these scans live, the better. That's great. And so sometimes partners get files back from us when we scan them. They go on our site and then they'll go on their site. Um, or they, we just scan for them the really difficult stuff and they to scan like maybe the maps they have and they're doing their own photographs and that sort of thing. Physical sites. Okay, then yes. Um, we usually just for that sort of information, we consult on like what type of scanners would be good for them to have on site that are in their budget. We're happy to talk to folks about that. We can also point them if they're wanting it to be something that's open to the public, we can point them to other people who are doing that and kind of giving them examples of what the setup looks like, how they're having the public use it and that sort of thing. So yeah, we're happy to help with that as well.
Great. I have actually another question for you, which is at Wilson, we get a lot of researchers who are researching like personal history and genealogy. Like, so are there ways in which the Digital Heritage Center might be a resource for this kind of researcher?
Definitely. I think that might be our biggest type of researcher. Everything that's typewritten on our site is OCR, so optical character recognition, so full text searchable. And a large number of our handwritten stuff is as well. We have a transcription project that's linked off our site where we have people help transcribe handwritten things on our website, and then we add that transcription back in to make it easier to search. And so if you ever want to do that, that's linked off our homepage. But yes, you can do, we have a lot of folks who do genealogy research using the yearbooks and the newspapers. Huge for genealogy. Folks can find stories about family members, find obituaries, marriage announcements. I mean, a lot of the town newspapers we have were from smaller towns, and they told everyone's business: who was sick that week, who was visiting that week, who was playing cards that week, and what was served at the card game. I mean, that level of detail is involved. Social media before social media existed was in the town paper. And so it's a really great resource, and we think it's pretty easy to do searching for names and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, really great resource for genealogies.
That's fun. I think we have time for just one last question. So this last one is a question about how are you funded? And I think I'll tack on to that, because the Digital Heritage Center relies on grant funding, like if you could also, or and Michelle, perhaps if Michelle, you are still on the call, could say just a few final words about why it's important to support initiatives like the Digital Heritage Center.
Yeah, so we are primarily grant funded. We apply every year for a grant to the State Library of North Carolina for LSTA funding to support the work of the center. And right now, that funding is stable. But we're always thinking we want to also be a sustainable resource that is around for a long time, because we have 367 partners that are counting on us to continue to exist, continue to provide access to these materials, and kind of highlight their collections. And so it's really important to support us by, using our website. Analytics are really important for us, in justifying why we exist and why our work is important. And also, because I really think what we do is boost these other institutions. They can bring these numbers. We have analytical dashboards for everyone. Every partner can look up how many times their materials have been accessed on our site. And then they can bring that to their funders and say, we need more support for continuing this collection work in our community to tell our community story. And so that's, we're kind of a conduit for helping get that support across the state. And so I think it's really important to support organizations like this because of that, and because we also are just providing a more holistic picture of what North Carolina's history is. Like I said, we have all these women's groups who are our partners, who otherwise maybe you're not going to find in our traditional archives, or big university archives. We work a lot with African American alumni groups, and just other people who maybe haven't had as much of a voice. The Mill community papers, those are vital communities to North Carolina's history. And so I just think it's important to support work like ours, so everyone has a voice in North Carolina's history.
I couldn't agree more, Kristen. That was a great great statement about just how important and far-reaching the work is. Of course, right now there is a good bit of the funding that comes from federal grants that support the Digital Heritage Center, and specifically funds from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So we do know that, so it depends on it being, there continuing to be funding for Institute of Museum and Library Services in the federal budget. We know that for fiscal year 26, which Congress just recently passed this year, there is funding, ongoing funding at a level very close to last year's level for Institute of Museum and Library Services. So that means we know that there continues to be funds for Institute of Museum and Library Services and those Library Services and Technology Act grants for the 2026 to 2027 fiscal year. Now, beyond that, we don't know yet. I know Congress is working on their proposed budgets right now, actually. So we're hopeful, but of course it is dependent on there being funds included in that budget for Library Services and Technology Act grants. But again, hopeful, since just recently there was funding put into it for this next year.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for talking about this and sharing about the Digital Heritage Center and what it needs to keep on doing its work. And thank you again to everybody here for joining us today. Special thanks to our friends of the library again. We are deeply grateful for your generous support. There is so much more to discover about the University Library at Carolina and how we enhance the experience of students, faculty, and friends like you. So Library Discovery Hour will return in academic year 26-27. We hope you will join us again. Be on the lookout for an invitation to our first event in the early part of the fall semester, and enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend.